Hey, it's Pachil. Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Tribal Sovereignty Report, your direct line to tribal sovereignty and policy updates. I'm your host, Aaron Thomas. Hauhitan is my hereditary name, and today is Thursday, August 6, 2026. Where did this week go? Where's this year going? We've got a stacked lineup today covering major moves in land, water, energy, and Capitol Hill. But before I dive in, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this podcast with your community. Please remember you can stream me anywhere you get your podcast. Let's go ahead and get straight into the news this morning. Our top story is on land sovereignty. According to Environmental Climate Change Canada, a landmark co-stewardship agreement officially transfers direct oversight of over 2,000 square kilometers of ancestral lands back to the Yukon First Nations Guardians. Now, why this matters to tribes: it puts local youth and elders in charge of protecting caribou migration corridors. And why this matters to sovereignty: it proves that First Nations are the original rightful legal stewards of their land, replacing top-down federal control with true nation-to-nation management. Our second story this morning comes from water sovereignty in the Northern Plains. According to the official updates from the Fort Belknap Indian Community Council and the Montana Reserved Water Rights Compact Commission, leaders of the Ani, also known as the Grovanatra and Nakota or Assiniboine nations, met directly with Montana State Water Regulatory Directors and representatives from the U.S. Department of the Interior. The leaders convened to finalize implementation schedules and infrastructure funding allocations under their federal water compact for the Upper Missouri and Milk River basins. Now, why this matters to tribes: it secures over 100,000 acre-feet of annual water allocations and directs more than $590 million towards clean drinking water pipelines, irrigation repairs, and agricultural reservoirs across the reservation. And why this matters to sovereignty: Fort Belknap was one of the original litigant of the landmark 1908 U.S. Supreme Court Winters versus United States ruling. This enforces the compact and asserts supreme tribal court jurisdiction over reservation water resources, keeping off-reservation commercial users from diverting water without tribal consent. So thanks again to our friends from the Fort Belknap Indian community for sharing that with us. Our third story this morning comes from food sovereignty. According to the updated U.S. Department of Agriculture guidelines, Federal Public Law 102-477, self-governance programs now allow tribes to source native foods like bison, wild rice, and local salmon directly for community nutrition programs. Now, why this matters to tribes: fresh traditional foods combat high diabetes rates and reconnects youth to ancestral foodways. And why this matters to sovereignty: decoupling from federal processed commodities lets tribes invest federal dollars directly into indigenous farmers and ranchers. Our fourth story this morning is in education and workforce sovereignty. According to the National Indian Education Association updates, tribal leaders are celebrating expanded authority under the Indian Self-Determination Education Assistance Act, granting tribes full control over immersion schools and local workforce training. And why this matters to tribes: Native youth can learn their language while building technical skills for local high-demand careers. And why this matters to sovereignty: a sovereign nation must educate its own people through indigenous values rather than relying on outside agencies. All right, our sixth story comes from tribal broadband expansion. According to Indian Country Today and Bureau of Indian Affairs reports, a Midwest tribal consortium, including the Red Cliff, the Fond du Lac, and Mille Lacs bands of Lake Superior, Chippewa, broke ground on a 400-mile high-speed fiber optic network connecting underserved rural reservation communities. Now, has a tremendous impact on self-determination. Tribal ownership guarantees native-run high-speed internet for reservation schools, health clinics, and emergency services without reliance on commercial internet providers. And the opposition on this is regional telecommunications conglomerates lobbied against routing federal grant money directly to tribal utility authorities, arguing state broadband offices should handle the expansion instead. In tribal sports today, according to World Lacrosse reports, the Haudenosaunee Nationals finalized their roster for upcoming international qualifiers, continuing their battle to play internationally under their own sovereign flag and native passport. Again, this is for the World Lacrosse. And in Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Alert, according to the Missing and Murdered Dene Relative Task Force and Puget Sound tribal law enforcement agencies, community alerts remain active for missing community members across Southwest Highway corridors and Pacific Northwest regional routes. If you or someone you know needs support, contact the Strong Hearts Native Helpline at 1-844-7-NATIVE. That's 1-844-7-NATIVE. All right, that'll do it for me here this morning. This was your Tribal Sovereignty Report for August 6th. Remember, knowledge is power, and sovereign control over our land, water, energy, and youth is how Indian country thrives. If you found today's briefing very valuable, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode with your friends, family, and your council members. You can, again, make sure that you can find me on any of the other places you get podcasts like Apple, Spotify, and of course right here on YouTube or wherever you listen. My name is Hal Heaton. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow morning for the final Daily Sovereignty Tribal Report right here. Thank you for joining me.